homeworld, a realm of tranquility and exquisite natural splendor, had its peace irrevocably fractured in a single catastrophic instant. Seismic upheavals rent the planet's crust, cleaving continents asunder. The very atmosphere became a suffocating shroud of ash and debris, plunging the skies into an oppressive darkness. Simultaneously, the immense oceans, heated by the planet's churning core, boiled and surged, inundating once vibrant cities. The Solari, a delicate civilization utterly incapable of interstellar travel, could only stand by, helpless witnesses to their world's annihilation. They were a people devoted to harmony, ill-prepared for such an overwhelming calamity, their faith placed in universal goodwill. Unfortunately, such benevolence was a rare commodity in the cosmos. The galaxy's dominant species, armed with advanced technology and formidable star fleets, observed the unfolding disaster in real time. Their sophisticated surveillance networks and probes meticulously recorded every tremor, every rising casualty. Yet, no action was taken. No rescue vessels were dispatched. No aid was extended. The Solari were deemed inconsequential, possessing no coveted resources, no martial strength, and their quiet existence held no sway over the galactic powers who prioritized only what could be exploited. The Solari were summarily classified as acceptable losses, mere collateral damage in the cold, calculated calculus of galactic politics. Within the hushed confines of a dimly lit chamber, representatives from the galaxy's most influential civilizations convened. The fate of the Solari was mentioned almost as an afterthought, a fleeting addendum to a broader discussion concerning interstellar trade routes and territorial disputes. One delegate proposed the deployment of their advanced rescue technology to save the Solari, but the notion was swiftly dismissed. What would be the point? It was argued. They are a pacifist race, incapable of offering anything in return. Another representative, shrouded in an aura of authority, unequivocally declared it a wasteful expenditure of resources to assist such a feeble species. Each delegate around the table tacitly agreed. Why intervene when there were no alliances to forge, no territories to acquire, and no profits to be secured? It was not an act of malice, but of stark pragmatism. The galaxy harbored far more pressing concerns. As their discourse shifted, the Solari were forgotten, their desperate pleas lost in the void, unheard by those in power, merely a footnote in the grand tapestry of galactic affairs. On the dying Solari homeworld, the situation grew increasingly dire with each passing hour. The planet's crust continued to fracture, sending seismic waves rippling through the remaining urban centers. Desperate to safeguard their people, the Solari leaders broadcast urgent calls for assistance across all available frequencies, hoping for any response from anyone. Yet their pleas dissolved into an echoing silence. Their once serene thoroughfares were now scenes of pandemonium, families sundered by the chaos, the air thick with pervasive dread. The Solari, who had lived without the necessity of weapons or armies, found themselves utterly defenseless against nature's merciless fury. They possessed no spacecraft capable of escaping their planet, no technology to counteract the seismic cataclysm, and no allies willing to offer succor. Their ingrained belief in the inherent kindness of others withered with the same rapidity as their world disintegrated. For the first time in their extensive history, they felt profoundly alone. However, on the distant periphery of the galaxy, far removed from the opulent halls of power, a different sentiment was stirring. Humanity, a species still relatively nascent on the galactic stage, intercepted the Solari's distress signal at a remote outpost. Human commanders and diplomats meticulously reviewed the message. Unlike the more established galactic entities, humanity did not perceive the Solari through a lens of calculated worth. They did not assess them based on their military might or economic potential. Instead, they saw a defenseless race teetering on the precipice of extinction. The human leadership convened, and though the decision carried inherent risks, it was one they could not refuse. Assisting the Solari would offer no immediate advantages to humanity, but that fact held no weight. They could not stand idly by and watch an entire species perish when they possessed the means to intervene. For them, it was not a matter of personal gain, but of fundamental righteousness. Despite the potential for opposition or scorn from other species, humanity resolved to act. Ships were readied, specialized teams assembled, and within mere hours, a mission was underway. This rescue operation was conceived not as a strategic triumph or a demonstration of force, but as a moral imperative. The human crew, comprising seasoned military officers, skilled engineers, and dedicated medics, understood that their mission would yield no glory or tangible rewards. There would be no strategic advantage gained, no alliance forged with a powerful civilization. They were not undertaking this endeavor to elevate humanity's standing within the galaxy. The mission's purpose was singular: to preserve lives. Despite being outnumbered by other galactic powers and receiving no support from the major species, the human crew pressed forward. This decision had not emanated from a grand council, but from individuals who recognized the inherent value of life, irrespective of political or material considerations. In the dim glow of the command center, key figures debated the intricate logistics. The risks were immense. The planet was on the brink of collapse, and venturing into such precarious conditions could result in catastrophic losses. Yet every voiced concern was met with unwavering resolve. We have to try. Captain Lin, a battle-hardened military leader, stood firm, flanked by Novak, the mission's chief engineer, and Reyes, the diplomat. Each understood their designated roles with absolute clarity. They were not present to engage in conflict or claim territory, but to exemplify what humanity was capable of when confronted with a profound moral obligation. They were there to demonstrate that compassion could be as potent a force as any weapon. Humanity approached the mission with a distinct strategy, unlike the methods other species might have employed. Where some would have meticulously calculated the cost-benefit ratio or awaited more favorable conditions, humanity acted with a sense of urgency and remarkable adaptability. The Solari simply did not have the luxury of time for protracted deliberations or analytical paralysis. Their flexible approach facilitated rapid, decisive action. Instead of adhering to a rigid plan, they devised an on-the-fly rescue strategy, leveraging every available resource. Human ingenuity, as it invariably did, flourished under pressure. As the vessels prepared for their descent, the crew conducted thorough checks of their advanced life support systems. The conditions on the Solari homeworld were deteriorating at an alarming rate, with oxygen levels plummeting and seismic activity escalating with each passing moment. Rather than relying on standard operating procedures, human engineers ingeniously modified their landing craft, equipping them with adaptive shielding and reinforced hulls to withstand the volatile environment. This was not the first instance of humans operating within hostile conditions. Their capacity for innovation in the face of peril distinguished them from the other species who had so readily dismissed the Solari as a lost cause. Once the landing sequence commenced, the sheer magnitude of the devastation became starkly apparent. Entire cities had been swallowed by the earth, and where verdant landscapes once flourished, now lay only desolate craters and an atmosphere choked with dust. The Solari, clustered in small, broken groups, were barely surviving. They had no shelter from the raging storms, no technology to shield them from the tremors that racked the ground beneath their feet. The sight of human vessels descending from the sky was beyond anything they had ever conceived. Hope had long since abandoned them. The initial contact between humans and Solari was brief, yet profoundly impactful. As the humans initiated their rescue operations, the Solari watched in utter disbelief. These unfamiliar beings, whom they had never encountered, were risking their very lives to save them. Engineers swiftly erected temporary shelters, while medics distributed essential emergency rations and medical supplies. The Solari, exhausted and broken, accepted the aid with a mixture of profound gratitude and bewilderment. Why would anyone undertake such a perilous endeavor for them? As the rescue efforts progressed, more Solari were brought to safety. Human medics worked relentlessly, stabilizing the injured, offering not only medical care but also vital emotional solace. They spoke to the Solari in gentle tones, assuring them that they were not alone and would not be abandoned. With every glance into a human's eyes, the Solari saw a glimmer of something that had been absent in their darkest hours: hope. Humanity's empathy extended beyond mere physical assistance. It was evident in the dignity with which they treated the Solari. They were not viewed as a lost cause or a problem to be solved, but as sentient beings deserving of a chance at survival. The humans ensured they understood this unequivocally. The bond forged between the two species in those critical moments transcended any alliance of convenience. It was rooted in shared values and the simple, profound realization that someone had cared enough to come. As the human crew labored tirelessly to evacuate the Solari, a sinister presence stirred in the void above. Not all of the galaxy had remained indifferent to the Solari's plight. Some saw the unfolding chaos as an opportunity. Word of the planet's collapse had spread, and now vessels belonging to galactic predators began to materialize in the skies. These were the scavengers of the cosmos, pirates, slavers, and ruthless mercenaries drawn by the scent of easy prey. They had arrived to exploit the vulnerable, to seize whatever meager possessions the Solari had left. Their interest lay solely in the potential profit to be gleaned from this catastrophe, utterly disregarding the Solari's plight. The Solari, defenseless and clinging precariously to life, were perceived as ideal victims. Human radar systems registered the incoming alerts, and a palpable tension rose among the crew as the alien ships closed in. These were not rescue missions. Humanity recognized the unmistakable signs of hostile intent. The energy signatures emanating from the approaching fleets were undeniable. Slaver factions and pirate vessels, battle-hardened, heavily armed, and vastly outclassing the human rescue ships, were bearing down on them. For a fleeting moment, a wave of dread washed over the humans. They were significantly outnumbered, their vessels designed for evacuation and medical aid, not combat. However, to retreat was not an option. The Solari, already on the verge of extinction, would face a fate far worse than death if captured by these predators. Outgunned but undeterred, the human commanders devised a strategy that could level the playing field. Where the predators relied on brute force and overwhelming numbers, humanity leveraged its inherent ingenuity, adaptability, and unwavering moral compass. Captain Lin, drawing upon decades of tactical experience, swiftly formulated a plan to counter the enemy's advantage. They could not match the enemy ship for ship, but they didn't need to. The smaller, more agile human vessels would employ guerrilla tactics, utilizing the planet's unstable conditions to their strategic benefit. The environment that had initially seemed their greatest adversary could now serve as a crucial asset in outmaneuvering the more powerful enemy ships. Humanity's technology, while less advanced in certain respects, was exceptionally nimble and versatile. The engineers aboard made swift modifications to their vessels, enhancing their capability to navigate the ash-choked skies and unpredictable storm fronts. They possessed a greater understanding of the planet than the incoming forces, having already worked on its surface and using its violent weather systems as cover. They launched a series of hit-and-run attacks, catching the enemy off guard with swift, precise strikes. Their tactics were unconventional but devastatingly effective. Human pilots flew perilously close to the planet's surface, skimming over crumbling landscapes and utilizing the natural seismic events and magnetic disruptions to disorient enemy sensors. As the larger predator ships descended, they found themselves confronting not only a determined adversary, but also an utterly unpredictable battlefield. The ground below was treacherous, the skies volatile, and the humans, against all odds, were making it impossible for the enemy to execute clean strikes. The enemy forces, confident in their superior firepower, were compelled to adapt to a style of combat they had not anticipated, one where brute strength proved inconsequential when the target was perpetually a step ahead. The humans refused to yield ground, even as the conflict escalated. The rescue effort continued in parallel, with one contingent of humans dedicated to evacuating the Solari, while another engaged the enemy. Captain Lin, directing the combat from the bridge of her vessel, ensured that every decision struck a balance between protecting the Solari and ensuring their own survival. Tactical retreats were employed not as indicators of defeat, but as a means to lure the predators into vulnerable positions. The humans fought not merely for victory, but for the lives of a species that was incapable of defending itself. The predators, realizing that the humans were a far more formidable opponent than they had initially assumed, intensified their assault. Vessels equipped with powerful energy weapons began raining fire upon the evacuation zones, yet the humans held their ground. Medics continued their vital work, guiding Solari into the remaining secure areas, while soldiers valiantly defended the perimeter. The ground shuddered beneath their feet, and the air was thick with dust and the acrid smell of fire, but the humans remained steadfast. Their ingenuity was matched only by their courage, fighting with the unyielding knowledge that retreat was not an option. The battle raged on, a brutal clash of ideologies as much as of firepower. The predators fought for profit, cold and calculating, seeking to exploit the defenseless. The humans fought for principle, standing as a bulwark between the weak and those who would prey upon them. They refused to abandon the Solari, just as they had refused to allow the galaxy's indifference to dictate their own actions. After what felt like an eternity of intense combat, the human forces began to gain the upper hand. The enemy, though superior in numbers, could not match the humans' tactical brilliance and adaptability. One by one, the larger enemy vessels began to withdraw, recognizing that the cost of this raid far outweighed any potential gains. However, this victory did not come without a price. Several human ships had been destroyed, their crews lost in the defense of the helpless. As the enemy finally retreated, a profound quiet descended upon the battlefield. The cost of victory weighed heavily on the survivors. They had triumphed, but at a significant sacrifice. Among the fallen were brave men and women who had sacrificed their lives to protect the Solari. Witnessing such selfless devotion, the Solari were irrevocably transformed. They had never before encountered such courage, such a profound willingness to sacrifice for another. Humanity's bravery, their refusal to yield in the face of overwhelming odds, left an indelible mark on the Solari people. The Solari, once on the brink of annihilation, began the arduous process of rebuilding their lives with humanity's invaluable assistance. The decision was made to relocate those who had survived to a new, secure world, far removed from the desolation of their shattered homeworld. Human engineers and scientists collaborated closely with the Solari, aiding them in adapting to their new environment. This was not merely a matter of providing them with the technology for survival. Humanity understood that their objective was not to reshape the Solari, but to preserve their unique way of life. The Solari's inherent peacefulness and nonviolent disposition were qualities humanity deeply admired, even if these traits rendered them vulnerable. The humans did not impose their military strategies or aggressive tendencies upon the Solari. Instead, they imparted knowledge on how to utilize technology for passive defense, how to harness their planet's resources for sustainable existence, and how to navigate the vast and often indifferent galaxy. The Solari absorbed this knowledge with remarkable speed, adapting to the new tools and skills with humility and grace. As the rebuilding process unfolded, the Solari's gratitude towards humanity deepened. They had transitioned from a state of utter helplessness to one of renewed hope, a transformation made possible by those who had risked everything to save them. Across the galaxy, news of the human rescue mission spread like wildfire, igniting fervent debates within the halls of power. Species that had once dismissed the Solari as insignificant now found themselves questioning humanity's motivations. The human intervention was not merely perceived as a noble act, it was an anomaly, something that disrupted the established norms of galactic politics. Why would humans, with no material gain at stake, risk their own lives and resources to save a race that offered nothing in return? To the more pragmatic species, it made no sense. It was seen as a reckless act, an emotional response in a galaxy governed by cold logic. However, some began to perceive humanity's actions as a novel form of power. They had not simply rescued the Solari. They had fundamentally altered the narrative of what it meant to be a galactic force. The unpredictable nature of human empathy was both inspiring and unsettling to species accustomed to meticulously calculating every move. This profound moral courage was difficult to comprehend, and even harder to anticipate. While some admired the humans' bravery, others harbored concerns that this willingness to intervene could render them dangerous in ways that could not be quantified by military strength alone. The established powers began to discreetly discuss the implications, observing humanity with a newfound sense of awareness. In the aftermath of the rescue, an unexpected alliance began to blossom between humanity and the Solari. And the humans had not intervened for any political or strategic advantage, yet the bond that had been forged in the wake of the disaster was undeniable. The Solari, once a forgotten race, now found themselves with a powerful ally. They pledged their eternal gratitude, offering what they could in return: their rich cultural wisdom, their spiritual insights, and a profound connection to the natural world that few other species possessed. The humans, in turn, pledged their continued support, ensuring that the Solari would never again face the galaxy alone. This alliance was not founded on power or fear, but on mutual respect. The Solari, while remaining peaceful, had gained a quiet resilience, knowing they had friends who valued them for who they were, not for what they could offer. Humanity, for its part, continued to provide military and technological aid, always with the understanding that they would not impose their ways upon the Solari. The relationship between the two species was a partnership built on shared values rather than transactional interests. As time progressed, the alliance between humanity and the Solari became a symbol of something far greater. It represented the notion that empathy and compassion could be as formidable as any weapon, and that sometimes the most significant victories are born not from what is gained, but from what is given. Other species, observing from afar, could no longer disregard humanity's influence. They had altered the destiny of a people whom others had abandoned to perish, and in doing so, had set a new benchmark for what it meant to be an integral part of the galactic community. In the quiet moments following the conflict, as the Solari embarked on their new lives, a profound reflection emerged, one that would resonate throughout the galaxy for generations to come. Humanity had not intervened out of necessity or for personal gain. They had acted out of empathy, driven by a deep-seated conviction that life, in all its myriad forms, was inherently worthy of protection. This, above all, was what distinguished them from the other galactic powers. They sought neither glory nor reward, but by choosing to care when no one else would, they had irrevocably altered the course of history. The galaxy would never perceive them in the same